Hey God family, how y'all doing? I'm Gaswota. Welcome to Gaswota Ministries, where we help you live completely sold out for Christ and help you grow in your relationship with God. If that is something that you're interested in, be sure to hit the subscribe button and join the greatest family in the world. Check out my other videos, and for more Christ-centered content, be sure to check me out on Facebook and Instagram. Like, follow, share all that good stuff with your friends and your family, and let's spread the word of the Lord together. So it is a new month, and I am here to give you guys a quick word. This month's word is going to come from Galatians chapter 6 verse 4 to 5. Galatians chapter 6 verse 4 to 5. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. One thing that God has really been highlighting in my life this year is to not compare myself to anybody else. You know, I feel like we can all find ourselves in such a space where maybe we've seen other people have or possess characteristics or possess things that maybe we wanted. We see them at this certain level of their lives, and now we're looking at them, we're looking at us, and now we're seeing ourselves as maybe, I ain't got that much really, but one thing that God has really been highlighting to me, and one thing that he has said to me this year, is you are not them, and that's okay. You are not them, and that's okay. God did not make you to be like them, and that is okay. That's a good thing. Psalms 139 tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. That means that we are uniquely made to be ourselves. If God really wanted us to be like somebody else, he would have made us like somebody else. With this verse today, I just want to encourage you guys to pay attention, to focus on your own work, on your own walk of life, the path that God has you on, the things that you are capable of doing, and stop looking at someone else's life. Stop looking at what other people have compared to what you don't have. You run your race and let them run their own. When you're running a race, each individual has their very own lane that they need to be running in. When you are so focused on what someone else is doing, what on the next person is doing, when you are focused on their lane and how fast they're running, you tend to lose your sense of direction and derail from your lane. And at some point, people end up hitting other things. They end up derailing other runners because their eyes were not focused on what they were doing, rather on what someone else was doing. That's why we need to focus on our own lane. That's why we need to focus on how well we're doing, how well we're running. If we're constantly looking at the other person and how well they're doing, we're only going to discourage ourselves. We're only going to demotivate ourselves. In most cases, we may even start to quit before you can even get to the finish line. Like I said as well, you derail from the path, and in most cases you end up derailing other people from their path, all because you are comparing your standing with somebody else. Look at David in 1 Samuel chapter 17. In this chapter, you find David. He has been sent by his father to go to the battlefield and give his brothers food. Now, when he gets there, he starts to hear Goliath talking badly about God and his army. And so he steps up and says, nah, this guy cannot be talking so bad about God's people, so I'm going to step up and I'm going to fight him. Now, when he says that he's going to fight him, okay, fine, they want to prepare him for the fight, right? Because he's not really trained for battle, but he's there and he's willing, he's available, he's availing himself. Now, when he gets there, the king gives him his armor to fight in. The king's like, okay, you don't have armor, you're not ready, you're not really prepared, but like, okay, take my armor so that you can fight in it. But David recognized that he could not defeat this giant using someone else's armor. He could not defeat Goliath using someone else's tactics, walking in someone else's shoes, running in someone else's lane. He needed to be authentic to who God made him to be. He needed to be authentic to who he was, to the path that God had him on. He needed to stick to his lane, to what he knows, and that was being a shepherd boy. He understood that he understood who God created him to be, and he used that to his advantage. He used that to his advantage. There are things that we learn. There are things that David learned while being a shepherd boy that helped him be able to fight Goliath. It's that confidence, the courage that he gained, the strength that he gained fighting a bear, fighting a lion while watching over his father's sheep. That was the same courage, the same confidence, the same strength that allowed him to stand before Goliath and say, I'm going to defeat you in the mighty name of the Lord Jesus Christ. David stuck to his lane instead of adopting someone else's. He could have taken King Saul's armor and went into battle to fight Goliath with it. But it would have weighed him down because one, he's not trained to use armor. He's a shepherd boy. He was not trained to use this kind of armor, and so it was going to slow him down because first of all, he would not know what to do with any of these parts. And so he decided, instead of comparing what he knew about battle and what they knew about battle, instead of comparing himself to the soldier's ability, he stood on who God created him to be, and he said, nah, I can do this with what God has given me. And so David stuck to his lane. He stuck to his lane. And him doing that created a path of victory and successes for him in his life. Now imagine if he actually went in there with King Saul's armor. It would have slowed him down. It would have weighed him down. He wouldn't even know what to do, and he would have been defeated on sight. And him being defeated on sight would have meant that the Israelites' army would have been defeated on sight. And there goes the Israelites. So, because he chose to stick with who God created him to be, to what he had, he did not look at himself and look at the soldiers and be like, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. No, he stood on who God created him to be. He stood on who God created him to be. And that worked out not just for him, but for the Israelites as well. You are not them, and that is okay. You don't have to be them to be able to walk the path that you are walking on. I know it's very easy for us to look at how other people are succeeding and wish that we could succeed in a similar manner. And because we saw the path that they took in order for them to succeed, now we want to take that very same path. But Psalms 139 tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are made uniquely. We are made to be us, not like somebody else. If we are made to be like anybody else, it's to be like Christ, but not like any other human being. And so because I'm made unique and you're made unique, our path to success will not look the same. You are not them, and that is okay. You are responsible for the life that you are living, not someone else's. You cannot win battles in armor that you are not familiar with. You cannot win battles with tactics and strategies that you are not familiar with. Each person has their own tailored path that God has tailored for that individual. We all have a specific path that God has set for us to walk on. And when we start to look at other people's paths and be like, oh, that path looks easier, that path looks so much nicer, and we want to now jump the path that was designed specifically for us, the path that God designed for our abilities, for our knowledge, and step into someone else's, a path that was never designed for us in the first place, we will fail miserably. Because it's not our place to be there. You don't know what people have to go through in order to gain the things that we are comparing our lives on. We don't know what situations they had to overcome. We don't know what battles they had to face in order to get to the stage of life that they are at. And by us looking at their lives and wanting to be like them or wanting what they have, it's almost like you are kind of like praying for their battles. You are praying for their situations to come upon you. The paths that we walk on life are not that easy. And it's tailor-made for us. You don't know what stages of life they had to go through in order to get to the stage that they're at. And right now, you are looking at your chapter 5 compared to someone else's chapter 15. That's why you gotta stick to your own lane. The verse tells us, pay attention to your own work so that you will then find satisfaction of a job well done. And you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. For each individual is responsible for their own conduct. The Amplified Version says, for every person will have to bear with patience his own burdens of faults and shortcomings for which he alone is responsible. What that person goes through, I was not made to go through the battles that they go through. I was not made to handle the burdens that they are handling. You are not them, and that is okay. Walk the path that God has put you on. If God made you to be living in the life that individual that you're comparing yourself to is living, He would have made you for that. He would have given that to you. But stop comparing yourself to someone else's blessing. Stop comparing where you are right now in your life with someone else's blessing. Again, you don't know what they had to go through in order to get there. Stick to your lane, run in your lane, focus on what you're doing, focus on your life, focus on the path that God has you on, and stop looking at what other people are doing. If that life was meant for you, it would have been for you. But you're not walking in it for a reason. God has set aside something else for you. You never know. Could be way better than what you're looking at from other people's lives. It just requires you to be a bit patient and requires you to work on you where you are in life so that, your chapters keep going up. Now you're in chapter 5 because you are steady running in your lane, running in your pace, running your race. Now you're in chapter 6, you're in chapter 7, you're in chapter 10. You're in chapter 15, you're in chapter 20. But again, you will only be able to level up in those chapters by focusing on you. Focusing on the path that God has you on. Focusing on what you have to do in order to grow. Not focusing on somebody else's life and somebody else's path and someone else's pace. So that is my message for you guys this month. Focus on your own work, on your own walk of life. Stick to your own lane. Stick on the path that God has you on, and stop looking at someone else's life. Stop looking at what someone else is doing. Stop looking at the pace that someone else is running and thinking that you have to catch up to them. You don't owe anyone anything. You just need to be yourself. Walk the path that God has you on. Do what God has called you to do. Don't look at how far someone else is in life and think that because they're so much further than you, that they are better equipped for whatever. Don't belittle yourself because you feel like you don't have certain things that successful people have that you wish you had. Maybe, by continuing to walk this path that you're walking on, by continuing to do that with each and every step that you take, with each and every effort that you put to run your race, to stick to your lane, you could be developing that very same characteristic. So let us not compare ourselves to what other people are doing, but rather let's stick to what God has us in. Let us stick on the path that He has us on. Focus on your walk of life. Focus on your walk with God, on the path that God has you on. Stick to your lane. Run at the pace that God has you at, and stop looking at someone else's life. You are not them, and that's okay.